One of the edits that's nice to use in Photoshop if you want to change the mood of a photograph is an edit called Gradient Map. This allows you to add an entirely different color overlay on top of your photograph in which to change its mood. First, we're going to open the photograph in Photoshop. Then we'll go to the Layers palette, click on this half white, half black circle, and go down to Gradient Map. Don't be confused by Gradient, which is near the top. After we click on this, we're going to want to go to the Properties box for the Gradient Map, and we're going to click on this gradient right here. So this is going to open up a lot of options. Depending on the version of Photoshop, you may have different presets up in the top area. I usually like to just create my own. So wherever I'm at, I'm just going to click at the very bottom of the gradient to change the color to be what I'd like it to be. So you might decide that you want to go for something like a complementary color. So I might go for a violet and then go all the way to a yellow. Now if I leave it like this, this pretty dramatically changes the image. I usually don't like to change my image that much. I'm hoping just to add just kind of a hint of the color on top of my photograph. You can add more steps within your gradient if you'd like. You can change how quickly it transfers. So if you want a little bit more on the violet side, you move this slider over. If you want more on the yellow side, you move it this way. So all of this you'll get some experience with as you start working with gradients. I like this a little bit more. If you decide that it's opposite of what you want, so you want to have one color be on the other side of your shadows or highlights, you can click reverse. So this almost creates a negative version of my image. I want to keep it this way. After I do that, I'm going to click back to the Layers palette here. By the way, you can always go back and change your gradient afterwards. Then after this, I'm going to change my blending mode. So normal makes it look like this. You can hover over a blending mode to see what it does. And there's no one right answer as to which one to use. I know some of these really change it to look from an image to kind of like more of a graphic arts type thing. Usually what I use is color or overlay. I think in this situation I'm going to use color. How you can affect how much it changes the image is with the opacity. So clicking on the opacity button here, you can slide it down a little bit lower and just create a hint of that color on top. So our before and after with this particular edit, here it's a lot more just kind of standard black and white, even though it was a color image. There's just only black and white value within the image. Now I've got a hint of that violet and yellow overlaid on top. So you can certainly add more gradients on top for different effects. So I'm just going to add another gradient map right on top. In this case, maybe I want to add a preset. So maybe I'll do kind of a blue on top. So the more gradients you have on top of the photograph, the more changes you can create. So maybe with this one, I'll do more of an overlay, reduce the opacity down, kind of like add more of a cool tone on top. So if you wanted to adjust kind of the warmness or coolness of the photograph, you could add additional gradients on top. Or certainly, as you get a little bit more experienced in Photoshop, you can use the layer mask and delete part of the color from part of the photograph if you didn't want it there. So for example, maybe I want to add that cool tone just on the edges of the photograph. I can make a really large brush painting black on my layer mask here. And you'll see that layer mask is changing here, so it's see-through in the center. So now all of a sudden I'm just adding that cool, hint of cool right along the edges of the photograph, rather than the entire thing. So again, here's the before image, and here's the after image. Again, I'm just adding a different color to the photograph using this type of edit.